Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Battlefield Project podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Rhoda, and we are the podcast for people who understand that life is a battle and only the strong will thrive. I'm joined by my good friend here, Triston Mathers, who I'm going to introduce in a moment. But before I do, please share this show if you're watching this on replay and Triston or myself says something that inspires you, moves you to take action, whatever that looks like. And or if you hear something that is shared and you think, hey, someone in my life needs to hear this message, please share the show. That is the whole gist of this podcast, is to create a massive ripple effect across the universe of people who have been through battles, have overcome those battles, and now are living a winner's life, to inspire other people to do the same, because nobody goes through life untouched. Every single human being you interact with or will interact with has their own personal battles. The difference between winners and losers: winners will fight their way through those battles and they will come out stronger on the other side. So without further ado, got my buddy Triston here, who is the leader at Conquer Your Life, which is an organization that empowers young men to become the confident, masculine leaders that they are meant to be. His mission, which is a beautiful mission, is to create a united world by developing the leaders who will inspire and guide others to do the same. And he says you must first conquer your life to teach others how to do the same. Brother, man, thanks for being here. I'm excited to hear from you and learn from you, man.
Dude, I'm pumped. Every time I hear people, introduce me like that, it just gets me more fired up because it is 100% what I'm here to do, and I'm
Yep.
excited to share my story with your audience.
Awesome, man. Yeah, we're very much on the same mission on Earth. I've said for a couple years now, probably 5 or 10, that my mission on this Earth is to create more leaders, to go out and create more leaders, man. So
hmm
we're on the exact same path. We're trying to accomplish the same goal. Not trying, we are accomplishing the same goals. And with guys like you, like I said before we hit the record button, the world's in a good spot, man. I'm excited to see what you bring to the table here. So the light is on you, my friend. Share some battles that you've been through, how you fought your way through those battles, and why you wanted to fight your way through those battles. And let's pour into the audience here.
Absolutely, man. So I'll start with just saying, obviously, I'm young. I'm 23 years old. So what I'm going to do is tell you my story from how I got here and why I am so passionate about pouring into young men, creating masculine leaders that will lead the next generations to come. So I'll start when I was 6 to 19 years old. That's when I fought the hardest battles of my life, and then I'll dive into what happened next after that. So,
Beautiful.
when I was 6 years old, I almost died, had a 15% chance of survival. I was up in Colorado and I went sledding with my dad. It was down a super steep, crazy hill. It was fun. It was like a snow roller coaster. Um, but I bet a lot of these listeners here know that kids can be super, super stubborn.
Yeah.
And I decided to go about halfway up the hill, a second or third time, going up and down. I was tired. And my dad said, "Do not go down this hill alone. You can't control it." But no, whatever. I'm 6. I'm invincible. Um, so I take the sled and go down without him. And all I hear in the background is like, "No, don't go." And I'm just smiling. I'm head first on this sled going down the hill, and I hit a bump and end up going straight towards the trees and smack my head going like 20 to 30 miles per hour. I was out cold. My face was all bloody and messed up, and it was Christmas Day. So when it came to opening presents and stuff, I was not excited, which is not something that happens when you're 6 years old. I was throwing up blood.
Yeah.
You know, I was not there. There's something seriously wrong with me. So my mom took me to the hospital later that night during a blizzard. I know it's crazy, but I was hallucinating too, which was nuts. And I'm telling this story from what my mom told me. Obviously, I was 6.
Yeah.
I don't remember much. Um, but I was seeing wolves, like ghost wolves and bears. It was weird shit. Who knows? Maybe I tapped into the spiritual world.
Yeah. Right.
But I get to the place, and it's this small little clinic. And I sat there for 2 hours, still throwing up. People weren't letting me in. And when they finally get me back there and run a CAT scan, which, if you guys don't know, is like this donut machine that lets you look at your brain, they said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. They would not get him back here sooner. His brain is filling up with blood. He has bruises on his brain. Like, we got to get him on an airplane now to take him to Denver Children's Hospital
Wow.
before we lose before your son is gone." So they put me on that airplane, fly me out to the Denver Children's Hospital, and they told my mom before heading out there, and I cannot imagine being a parent being told this. They said, "You need to prepare for 3 different things. Number one, your son is going to be in surgery already. And the odds of him making that out is about 10 to 15% since it's already been so long since it happened. Number two, he's either going to be brain dead in a vegetable, or three, he's going to be dead. So it's a blizzard. They had to drive there, so being told that as a mom, I couldn't even imagine what that's like. So obviously I'm still here talking to you guys. So what the hell happened?
Yeah.
So when my parents get there, they stabilized me. I was still having like seizures here and there and still battling a little bit, but they stabilized me, which was cool. But they were still planning on in about 48 hours to give me a brain surgery to hopefully heal me because it wasn't working. This was actually the beginning of my spiritual journey because it's only a miracle for why I am here. My grandmother and my great grandfather were missionaries, or my great grandfather was a missionary and my grandma was a missionary's daughter. So they had thousands and thousands of people praying for me across America. And on that third day, I walked out of there with not a damn thing wrong with me.
Wow. That's impressive, man.
I'm not kidding you.
Like and impressive isn't even the right word. Miraculous, like you said.
Yeah, it is an absolute miracle, and that just makes me so grateful. That's the number one. There's three areas on how to conquer your life, and the number one is spiritual growth.
Yep.
I wouldn't be here without God, so that's my number one. But after I healed from that and I was good and fine, my parents weren't. They were very sheltered over me growing up, and what happens to a kid when you're sheltered? You rebel.
Yep.
So I got into drugs and alcohol pretty early, like 7th grade, hanging out with the wrong crowd. And I just wanted to be seen because I was so sheltered and I was so small. And I'll dive into that soon too. That I started getting into that early. And then around the same time, was just added icing on the cake. My mom told me a story that when I was in the womb when she was pregnant with me, that their pastor at the time told them to have an abortion with me because they weren't married yet. So at a young age, at 12 years old, I was like, fuck this stuff. Obviously I was young. I wasn't thinking about how miraculously I survived, but I was like, fuck religion.
Yep.
This is bullshit. I'm not doing this anymore. I don't believe in God, blah, 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 blah. Obviously I was young, dumb, hanging out with idiots. But I didn't talk to God again till I was probably 19 years old.
Yep.
So going into high school, I still wanted to be seen. I was tiny. Freshman year, I was 4'8", 80 pounds. I got picked on. You guys can laugh. It's hilarious, but I got put in trash cans. I got locked in lockers. I got picked up by my head by seniors, and it was just a rough time, but I didn't let it get to me. And this is when it dives into the second core value of conquering your life, and that is your mental clarity, your mental growth. Even though I was so tiny, I learned early on in high school that if I wanted to be seen, I had to be bigger than what I actually was. So I acquired an awesome skill called little man syndrome. No matter how big somebody was, I would not be scared to fight them and raise hell. But because I was so small, I did really want to be seen. I wanted to be appreciated. I wanted everybody to just see me for who I really am than just this little guy looking down on me figuratively and physically. So it's all I ever wanted. So to add on to my drugs and alcohol journey, I was that kid in high school. I got invited to all the parties. I was going to college parties sophomore year because I was just nuts, man. Like Steve-O and Jackass. I'd be doing backflips off of tables. I did everything I could, man, to be seen. I've almost died before because I drank so damn much. And mom and dad, if you're listening to this, I know I haven't told you, but freshman year, man, I got so intoxicated. It's only a miracle again for why I'm still here. Also in high school, another battle that I went through was I got to see 3 of my classmates in a casket very early on. Freshman year, the kid I sat next to in class killed himself. Sophomore year, a good friend that I was becoming good friends with. He was an awesome guy. He died in a car accident. And then junior year, a girl named Tess Smith, she passed away in a skiing accident, which is ironic. Because I survived a sledding accident. So I thought about that and it was just nuts. But my story gets a little more bright. I know I'm talking about quite a few battles, but I got my first real girlfriend at 17 and I thought I was going to marry this woman. So 17 and 19 was an awesome time in my life. You know, I was finally accepted. I actually finally got with a woman who saw me for who I was, because I could not pull a girl. I was so
Yeah.
small. All these ladies wanted these big, muscular,
Yeah.
bearded fellas that look like they're 40 years old now, and I still look
Yeah.
like I'm 15 if you guys are seeing this, but it's okay. But yeah, 17 and 19, I was dating her, and this is when my story takes a turn. At 19 years old, the same day that I found out she cheated on me in college, I didn't go to college. She went to college. Same day I found that out was the same day when my best friends passed away in a motorcycle accident
Jeez, man.
that I grew up with. His name was Marcel. He taught me how to be a hustler. He taught me how to grind. He was just such an amazing person in my life, and that hurt really bad. But on top of that, seeing him in a casket was terrible, just absolutely terrible. I get a little emotional here, so
Yeah, man.
I'll just stay with me.
Yeah.
He was going so fast on that motorcycle that his helmet was on, but the only thing real in the casket, dude, was like a head and an arm. You could tell everything else was fake and puffed up.
Yeah.
And just seeing that, man, it made me never want to look like, I'm serious. Like, I will not look somebody in the casket ever again, because I don't want that to be my last memory of them. I want to remember them being alive for my
Yeah.
last memory. So after that, man, I was so heartbroken. I was dealing with grief. I didn't know how to. My dad never taught me how to. So I did it really all on my own. And I spent all my savings on drugs and alcohol, hanging out with idiots still, numbing that pain, playing video games, not doing shit. Second month comes around, and almost to the exact day that Marcel passed away, my neighbor comes and knocks on the door. His name's AC, and he says he's crying. I'm like, "Hey, what's going on, man?" And he said Dalton, a friend that I grew up with as well, passed away last night in a motorcycle accident, and I'm asking you to be his casket bearer. I need your help, you know? And I was like, man, of course I'm gonna do it. But in the back of my head, I'm like, God, like, I
Yeah.
remember coming inside after that. I'm like, God, what are you doing, man? Like,
Yeah.
why are you putting me through this? But most importantly, like, why are you putting these dads through this? Like, what's going on, man? Like, is somebody just gonna die every month now that I just have to get used to it? I couldn't cry anymore, man. I was so broken on the inside. I was like, man, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Third month comes around. One of my best friends, like a brother to me, Jacob Aguilera, he passes away in a car accident. So, man, that was just 3 months of just going through it. And I didn't cry. I didn't really cry at his funeral, but something triggered me after that. And that was when I talked to you guys in the beginning, listening. That's when that's when I really heard God's voice. And he told me, you, Triston, have a story to tell that's going to change the world, and you have to tell it. This is why you're going through this. You're going to break free. So at 19, I decided to stop being a victim and stop holding on to the fears. Stop being that small Triston. Stop making the excuses. And I decided to conquer my life. And what that looked like is from 19 to 23 now, I have went from 110, 115 pounds to 160. I've now shredded down to about 145. And that's the third part of conquering your life, is your physical growth. With that as well, going through all those mental challenges at 19 years old has matured me very much so in my mental capacity. I was going through things with death that a lot of people don't go through till they're 40 or 50.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, I've been diving into my spiritual growth with God. So those are the three: mind, body, spirit. Mind, body, spirit. If you can conquer those three areas and you can grow in those areas, you can become unstoppable. And to add to my story as well, yes, I heard God for the first time, but I wasn't like following him yet till I found my now fiance, Brianna. And she was really, really supportive on trying her best to get me back into my spiritual drive.
Mm-hmm.
And man, something happened. Like, this is nuts. Like, I went to church, I wasn't liking it, whatever. But then there was this one day I went to the gym, got home, took a shower, and in the shower I was putting all these pieces together. I'm like, whoa, 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 wait, hold on. Oh, and it's something I forgot to add. When I was 6 and I healed, I was never the same. I was not the same person. My mom swears to it. I had different personality, characteristics. Something happened when I hit my head and
Yeah.
healed. And I started looking back at my story. I'm like, wait a second, wait a second. If I didn't hit my head, I wouldn't have been able to tell the miracle, number one. But number two, I would have been different if I didn't hit my head. Who knows
Who you'd be. Yep.
who I'd be right now. So I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. Well, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have been sheltered. If I wouldn't have been sheltered, I wouldn't have hung out with the idiots that I needed to hang out with.
Yep.
If I didn't do that, I wouldn't have gotten into drugs and alcohol. I would not have went through a lot of the things I went through
Yep.
now, but I had to go through that. The reason why I'm 23 and am not out partying and hanging out with dummies still is because I did that all in high school. I got it out of my system and realized that it's bullshit and it's a waste of time. And there's no reason why you should be doing that. And you need to take into consideration why you are actually doing that. And a lot of the reason is because you're hiding from healing from traumas in your past, and there's something that you need to work on. But I'm still just saying, like, I was putting all these pieces together, and then, dude, like the power of the Holy Spirit, God just dropped me to my knees in the shower, and I started bawling, and it was like this thunder in my brain, just like, I'm showing you now. I've been waiting for you. Take action. Do the things I tell you. Believe in me. And I just put my hands up. Okay,
Yep.
okay, I'm yours, man. I'm yours. I'm following you. And that's when my spiritual journey took an absolute turn, man. I am an advocate for God. I know for a fact he put me through those things for a reason. I like to call it God's anvil. This is huge. If you think of an anvil and picture yourself as a sword, you get put on that anvil, you're broken. But God's going to beat you up. He's going to put you in the flame. He's going to put you in the water. He's going to beat you up. He's going to do it over and over and over again till you come out sharper than anything to go and conquer your demons in your life. You are now a pimped out sword that's ready to cut anything out of the way, but you had to go through those struggles first. And this is why I dive into why I'm so passionate about conquering my life to then help others conquer theirs too, is because I don't want people to go through what I went through. I don't want the men or women, but I don't know how to be a woman, so I'm going to target the men here. I don't want them to go through that. And I know a lot of men that do go through what I did, they don't come out. They stay in it forever or they kill themselves. That's just the fact of the matter. They never have to do it. It is by God's grace why I am here talking about it now, and I'm here to share that message because we need it, man. Another thing for it is it's very obvious how men are targeted, how there is a lack of leadership, and there's a lack of masculinity as a whole. And I'm not just going to sit here and be a bystander. So that's why I created Conquer Your Life. It's going to be a tribe, a network of young men, teaching them how to become the most elite masculine versions of themselves, so then they could lead their families in the future. Selfishly, as well as I'm also doing this because I don't want my kids to grow up in this shit, man. It's so toxic, it's so broken, it's so evil that we have to do something about it. And it is my journey, it is my purpose to change the world by creating the masculine leaders needed to create masculine leaders till I'm way gone on this planet, man. There's been many men who have changed the world, so I'm going to be one of them. If you think about it, if we fix that one problem of creating masculine leaders, then women are going to step into their feminine energy. And if that happens, then everything is going to start coming together as a whole. Women have had to step up into their way more of a masculine role because guys aren't stepping up where they need to be. So obviously, a lot of men double my age don't want to listen to me yet because I am 23 and it is hard to take credibility from that. So I am starting with the younger men till I can grow into that. But I know that that's where I'm meant to be. If it's teaching teenagers early on before they graduate, breaking them out of that adversity, comfortable mindset in high school, helping the parents out with that, on top of teaching the young men from 18 to 30 how to do it as well, man. That's where I strive. That's where I roll. And I'm confident that there's nobody else that can do it better than me my age. So that's my story, brother.
Yeah, man. I think your number, let's call it 50, 48, 47, 50 the interview that I've done here on the podcast. And I think maybe two or three times, and that's just because I would assume this has happened before, that I got goosebumps listening to someone speak. So
Mm,
powerful story, man. I'm inspired. Yeah, I mean, you make a good point at the end there about like reaching the younger guys, because it's hard to get a 40, 35, 40, 50-year-old man to like, oh, what's this 23-year-old going to teach me how to be a man? Like, who does he? I
hmm
get that. And like when I started out in business, I had the same challenges, man. I was like 23 and I was trying to sell marketing to, 40, 50-year-old men. They're like, who's this young guy who thinks he can take my money? And so I get it, but I'm 40 and your message resonates with me. So
mm,
I think your target audience is probably right on point with who you're like speaking to directly, but don't discredit the fact that you can make an impact on dudes twice your age, because you can. And not to say
mm,
like change your marketing message, your target audience, any of that stuff. I think you're right on point with where you're headed. But that little voice in your head might sometimes that plays over and over. It's like, yeah, but a 40-year-old guy ain't gonna listen to me. Like, no, 40-year-old guy will listen to you. Like if they're wired properly. If it's a
hmm
40-year-old dude who is set in his ways, I'll say like is a loser and is never going to be a winner, that
mm.
40-year-old is not going to listen to you whether you're 40 or 23. It makes no difference. But
You're right.
that 40-year-old has at least a little spark in him that just needs to get stoked by someone else. You could be that person that stokes that fire for any guy at any age, man, because your story's powerful. I think you've extracted the lessons from it exactly the way you needed to. I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. And like you
Hmm
said, you hit your head, like you had to hit your head, because who knows who you'd be. You still might be out running the streets doing drugs had you not had that
hmm
experience. So I mean, I said this before I hit the record button. I'm inspired by you, man. I know you through Apex, and I've only like seen your posts. We've never interacted like this before. And guilty as charged. Like I operate under the assumption that like, this kid's young, he must have like had this all figured out for the last 20 years. Like he must have just like grown into like, you start day one and you just evolved into this man, and like it's been his life journey to be. And now hearing your story, I'm like, holy shit, man. Like I didn't have death surround me like you did with friends and stuff like that, but the drugs, the lack of purpose,
hmm
the trauma like that you didn't really know you had, but you were trying to figure out, and you just wanted to be seen, whether it was as like a good leader or a bad leader. Like very similar stories through that. And kudos to you, man, for getting out of that and being shaken out of that. And again, thanks, to your own inner power, but also God for doing it for you.
hmm
That by 19 or 20 you had to figure it out, because that's when I started really hitting my stride with bad decisions, and it lasted till about 30, 33 for me,
hmm
which not the end of the world, but that's 10 years, 15 years of wasted time that you aren't going to be wasting, that you're going to be making an impact for an extra decade and a half. And that is a powerful place to be, man. Like you're sitting pretty right now in terms of like
hmm
the depth of experience you've had at such a young age, and now the wisdom that you've gained from that, and the like decades of opportunity and potential that you have to go and make a huge impact on the world, man. I have no doubt that you'll be one of those people that people are talking about in the future, not even the future, like more so than they are now, but like you'll have that impact, dude, because you're on the exact path you're supposed to be on, man. And just listening to you talk for 20 minutes, I'm like, yeah, this dude, he's there. Like he's already there. It's just now a matter of, like you said, kind of sharpening that sword day by day and
hmm
going out and cutting your way through life and making that impact that you're born to do, man.
Yeah, I
Super impressed.
appreciate that, man. And all I could really say is that I know, and it's just a blessed thing to say, is that like I can confidently say like I am meant for this, and there's
Yep.
nothing that anybody can tell me to bring me down, because I have these skills. You can hear it in my voice. I'm authentic.
Yep.
This is true. And on top of what you were saying about the older men thing, you're right. I spoke for my first time on stage this weekend in Montana,
Yep.
and it went so good. And afterwards, what I realized is that I might have to switch up my target audience a little bit to the parents. Man, the parents, you were totally right. Like the moms, like the single moms that need help raising their boys without a father,
Hmm.
like that is a huge market. That is so true. I want to help those teenagers, but like it or not, in today's society, I'm obviously going to need to get paid to
Yep.
do it. So how do I get paid? From the moms,
Yep.
you know? And that was huge. Um, but yeah, man, this
Yeah.
is just an
and
amazing
and
feeling.
think that, like, I think you're follow that thought through to kind of like completion at some point, because with the Battlefield, the brand, like one of the spin-off, like we have the Battlefield Alliance, which is like business owners, leaders our age, like managers, executives that we kind of personal and professional help them grow. But a dream of mine, and like I've said for years and years, we're going to do a spin-off division of that, which is the Battlefield Next Gen, which is like the next
Mm,
generation, and that is going to target exactly who you're talking about, which is like the 18 to 25, 27-year olds who are like,
yeah.
they're at that moment in life where it's like, okay, I can continue down this path, which is like, who knows where it's going to go. And I'm kind of lost with purpose and I'm surrounding myself with the wrong people, not really growing, or I could take this path. And that stage where I went this way, and I'm like,
Hmm.
my goal on this earth, my purpose on this earth is to get to that youth at that age and push them in
Hmm.
this direction so they don't spend
Yep.
15, 20 years going down the wrong direction. But I'm
Um,
saying all that because as I was talking to my business partners about it, and my buddy Austin, who I mentioned to you before the call, it was kind of like, okay, who's our target audience? Like, are we trying to reach that youth, that, 17, 20-year-old, call it kid? It's not a kid, but like some of them are still acting like kids. Or should we go after their parents? Because the
mm,
parents can pay for a service to, if they know there's something in their kid and they want to cultivate it, they'll pay for that service to help their kids go in the right direction. But B, like, your parents, for better or worse, or like for good or bad, are one of the biggest influences in your life.
hmm.
Like, so if you
Yep.
can get that message through to a parent and be like, hey, I've been where your son is at, and like I know the struggles he's going through, and I can reach him, but I need your help. Just get me in front of him, and you can
Hmm.
get the parents buy-in. That
Yeah.
buy-in, then it's you and the parent as a joint force going after that kid and saying, hey, just have a conversation with me, as opposed to just going directly to that kid, and that
Hmm.
kid being like, well, maybe my mom would support this, maybe she wouldn't. Like, if you can get the buy-in for the parent,
Hmm.
man, you're light years ahead because you got that extra support that you need.
Yeah. And it's like the authoritative type of thing too. Like if the parents introduce me to the younger guy, there's gonna be
Yep.
teenagers that even still look older than me. They're like, who the hell is this guy?
Yep.
You know? But on top of that too, why I'm going to be so good at it is because I can relate on so many levels.
Yeah.
And they're, like it or not, younger guys, they do not want to listen to people twice their age.
I
That's
get it.
just the
Yep.
truth, man.
Yep.
So if I could pour into them and tell them my story and tell them how I made it out of it and why you need to take action now,
Yeah.
it is huge. I've already done it for a numerous amount of young men and poured into them. But to add on to the parent aspect, like if I'm pouring into the younger guy, I'm going to need the parents to do their job too,
Exactly
because
it.
like you said, they are that much of an influence. They are their role models. And
Yep.
that's what we're lacking in today's society is real masculine role models,
Yep.
and with my dad, obviously I know he tried his best. I know there's a lot of listeners here that have done your best to raise your kiddos, but telling you this from my perspective, my dad was not there enough. I needed my father.
Hmm.
He was working his ass off. He was helping us with the roof over our head, man, but he was not there to lead me.
Yeah.
I needed my dad. So I want this to be a message to all the fathers out here, like don't get too caught up in the money making, like be there with your family. Um, that's what your kiddos need. And that's the biggest lesson. I can only learn from what I have experienced. So as a younger guy who has grown up into that, I want to say that I wanted my dad more than anything.
Yeah.
And it was just by the miraculously how I went through it that I ended up okay. Um, but I just wanted to share that.
That's a beautiful message, and we'll end it here in a couple of minutes. But that's a beautiful message to end it with, because I think, we're in Apex, which is female and male driven, like go-getter, success, acquirement, bigger, better, like, and that's all great. Like, I respect that, and I strive for that in a lot of ways. But for me, I have four kids. I got two twins who are 10 months old, a 3-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old daughter.
Mm,
Like, for me, it's family first. Like, and I always
Hmm.
say, like, and I work from home. Like after this, I'll, this and the next one, I'll probably go pick my two girls up from preschool. I took them to preschool this morning. Like, I don't start my day until 9:30 when I've already done my family thing. I'm done by 4, so I can do my family thing. I could make a lot more money if I sacrifice time with family for time driving more business. But I'm like, you could offer me a $10 million a year job right now, which is significantly way more than I make currently financially. I wouldn't trade anything for the amount of time the freedom I have to spend with my family and the amount of presence I get to do with my family. Because for me, and I grew up like I grew up, my dad was at every baseball game. He was my coach. He was at the basketball games. Like I was gifted with that. And it meant so much to me that I got to experience that I've taken that now. And I'm like, I'm giving my kids that. Like when it
Hmm.
all said and done and I'm on my deathbed, I always say to people, like, I want my kids to drop everything, jump on a plane, and be like, I got to be next to dad when he's like about to pass away because he was there for us all of our lives. We're going to be
Hmm.
there for him. Like that's priceless to me, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of guys miss that mark, and I think like my dad's generation and then his dad's generation, we were wired. You work. That's your most important responsibilities. You work, you put food on the table, put house over the head,
Hmm.
check those two boxes, and then you're tired. So it's understandable if you go home and you're a little too tired to like get involved with the family.
Hmm.
And it worked, it was like for a couple generations, like it did its job, but we're in a different era of consciousness right now
Yeah.
and leadership, and it doesn't work anymore. Like you have to
Mm-mm.
be able to do both and do both really well. And you can't sacrifice one for the other. Because I love hearing you say that, dude, because I don't think that message is shared enough that it's not like you're not going to look at your dad and be like, hey, dad, I love you so much because you made $5 million a year. And that's cool if he does, but like you're going to look at your dad and be like, dad, I love you so much because you were there for me whenever I needed you,
Hmm.
period. And like that's
Yeah.
the gist of it all, man.
One of my favorite words is fulfilled, being
Yep.
fulfilled. As a man, from what I understand, is that you cannot be fulfilled if you're not living by the example of what it means to be a masculine leader in the household.
Yeah.
That's
100%.
why you go to work and you're making all this money, cool, man, but you will never have that hole inside of you filled until you're being the example for their family and they look up to you
Yep.
in a good and amazing way. And I can just say that from experience. Yet after, like when I was going through, I very much so did not want to be around my dad. I'm not saying he was a bad guy. I needed him so bad, no matter how hard I tried to get to him, didn't happen until after I healed. I was like, "Hey, Dad, I just wanted to pull you to the side and tell you."
Hmm.
And it was a game changer for him. Me and him have an amazing relationship. My whole
Beautiful.
family has an amazing relationship. But I'm very blessed to learn this early on that it's not about the money.
Yeah.
It's about what you do with the money, but it's more important like how you are showing up with your family. I
Yep.
don't have kids yet. I will, but I do know that's how it's supposed to go, even if I don't have kids. It's
Yep.
just truth.
That's how successful society is built and maintained, is
Hmm.
the dynamic that you just spoke of, man. I couldn't agree with you more. And thank you for sharing that, because there are moments, you got the little voice inside your head and the imposter syndrome, and it's all real. Like I've achieved a certain level of success, but I get like the little bites from my subconscious sometimes. It's
Hmm.
like, you should be making more money. That's what's important. And I'm like, I know, but like I feel like when I brush that voice away, I'm like, go fuck yourself. Like the bigger voice and like the depths of my soul is like, no, dude, like you're right on point. Like you're living the exact life you need to do. You're providing for your family, but more so than financially, like soulfully. And to me,
Hmm.
I know that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I know that's the end game is that. But then you see all these people making like so much more money. You're like, but I need that too. It's like, I don't need that. Like that would be nice and I'll enjoy that when I have it. But like I need this, which is what I have. So
Hmm.
hearing that from an obviously successful younger person, and going to be extremely successful as you continue your journey, it means a lot to me, man. Because I don't hear that often, and it was like a good quick reminder for me. It's like, okay, I'm also on the right path, which I appreciate hearing, dude.
Hmm. Absolutely, man. I'm glad I could add that into this podcast. It's just I want to give as much value and heart as I can and share my perspective because one thing I also learned after this weekend is by being vulnerable and just by sharing the truth and making it authentic, man, you could change so many lives.
Yep.
Don't hold on to it. I have so much to give. You know, that fulfilled thing I talked about. I've been filling up my cup. I'm ready to pour it out onto people, man.
Sir. Triston, man, where can people find you online if they want to connect with you? Which, if whoever's listening to this, if you haven't already figured out, connect with this dude now, because it's only onward and upward from here, I'm imagining.
Yes. So thank you for that. Facebook is the number one thing that I use. I'm still building my website and my business as we speak, but you can find me on Facebook. Any links or anything will be on there as well. That's my number one. Follow me on there. Triston Mathers. That's Triston Mathers, like Eminem. And that's it, guys.
Awesome, man. Thank you for being here. Audience, for listening. Thank you. I appreciate the viewership and I appreciate the support. And Tristan, man, even the second time after I mentioned the Goosebumps, you said something else after that I got another round of, or I don't know if you know Lisa Marie Platsky in Apex, or she calls them angel bumps instead of Goosebumps. I got angel bumps twice throughout this podcast. So your message has an impact, man. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you pouring into our audience, and we will see everybody on the battlefield.
Later on, everybody.